Hey everyone, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology. Today I'm going to be reviewing a video with you from a Franciscan who claims that Pope Leo XIV's election was invalid. He is going to give a canonical argumentation for it. It's something that I've seen been floating around on social media, so it's not unique to him. And I do suspect in the coming months, maybe even years, this one is going to be floated around more frequently. And so it might be important to go ahead and tackle it this early on. We, in fact, saw already from Dr. Edmund Mazza, a Catholic professor. I reviewed a video from him just about a week or so ago where he argues that Leo XIV is not the Pope, and therefore there's currently no Pope. We took a look at why he argues that. He basically says that Pope Leo XIV, prior to being elected Pope, was a heretic. He says that he accepted Pope Francis's heresies, quote unquote, and heretics can't be made pope. They're not eligible to be pope because how can a heretic be the head of the church? And so he argues his election was invalid. Today, we're going to see an argument that's a little bit different from that, although I think this individual accepts that argument. He also builds on top of it with an argument from the Code of Canon Law concerning the number of cardinal electors who chose Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV. So he's going to argue that there was actually too many cardinals, and based on what John Paul II said in one of his magisterial documents, the election is null and void. And so we're going to take a look at that argument. First, I want to remind y'all, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I would really appreciate your support. This is coming from, if you're not familiar with him, this is someone who calls himself Brother Alexis Bugnolo from a website called From Rome. We've actually seen him before on this channel. I reviewed another one of his videos maybe over a year or so ago where he was arguing that Pope Francis was not the Pope. And then I did a follow-up show with y'all because he got together a few people, I think a bishop or two, brought them to Rome, and they elected a new pope because they believed that Francis was not the pope. So they came together and had their own conclave. I think maybe one or two bishops were present. I don't know. It may have only been a few people who were present. But guess who they elected? They elected Pope Francis. I kid you not. So we reviewed that video. We've seen him previously. Now, I think there's debate on whether or not he's a legitimate Franciscan, whether he's really a religious, whether he should rightly be called brother, and so on. And so, tabling that whole debate that I've seen some people are discussing online, putting that to the side, regardless of this person, their position with the Catholic Church, their legitimacy, we still need to evaluate the argument because regardless of the source of the argument, I do think that this is an argument you're going to see very commonly expressed in the coming, again, months, maybe even years, for people who are perhaps discontent with the situation in the Catholic Church and are going to be looking for a reason to say that Pope Leo isn't the Pope. I suspect they're going to latch on to this argument because on the surface of it, there's some cogency to it, right? And it looks like there's going to be some merit to it on the surface, a little bit more than the arguments that were previously used to say that Pope Francis wasn't the Pope. There's going to be a little bit more teeth to this one. And so I do think that in the coming years, people are going to float this around more. So regardless of what your thoughts about this particular person is, legitimate or not, good source or not, we still need to evaluate documents. We need to evaluate arguments, regardless of who they come from. Okay, so that's why I'm reviewing this. It's a relatively short video, and we're going to take a look at what he says and also what the Vatican has said on the matter. I do want to ask everybody to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like button if you haven't already. Also, let me know if you appreciate this new feature here that shows you the live chat as it's going on live. Do you want me to turn that off, or do you want me to keep it on? Let me know if you like that feature on or off. It's new, so we're trying it out today. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's go ahead and dive into what the man is arguing here, and let's take a look. All right, you ready? Let's begin. And let me know if there's any kind of echoes, or if you can't hear the audio. I am playing it slightly faster than normal. But yeah, give me some feedback there in the comment section as we begin right now.
Promulgatory clause in its papal law on conclaves, Universi Dominici Regis, from the Vatican's English translation. I read from paragraph 2. As determined above, I hereby declare abrogated all constitutions and orders issued in this regard by the Roman pontiffs, and at the same time I declare completely null and void anything done by any person, whatever his authority, knowingly or unknowingly, in any way contrary to this Constitution.
Okay, that's paragraph 2 from John Paul II's Universi Dominici Regis. We've seen this before. People were bringing this up to say that Benedict was still the Pope, and so we've tackled that in previous shows. This is paragraph 2 from this document. Paragraph 2, which he just read from, let me read it to you. During the vacancy of the Apostolic See, the government of the Church is entrusted to the College of Cardinals solely for the dispatch of ordinary business and of matters which cannot be postponed, and for the preparation of everything necessary for the election of the new Pope. That's an important part. So the cardinals are able to do everything necessary to prepare for the election of the new Pope. That's going to be important later. The task must be carried out in 2 ways within the limits set down by this Constitution, and you'll see why he's arguing that the conclave was null here in a moment. Consequently, those matters are to be absolutely excluded, which, whether by law or by practice, come under the power of the Roman Pontiff alone, or concern the norms for the election of the new Pope laid down in the present Constitution. And he also quoted from paragraph 1, I therefore declare null and void any act of power or jurisdiction pertaining to the Roman Pontiff during his lifetime or in the exercise of his office, which the College of Cardinals might see fit to exercise beyond the limits expressly permitted in this Constitution. So he's saying it's null and void anything regarding power or jurisdiction pertaining to the Pope during his lifetime or in the exercise of his office, which the College of Cardinals might see fit to exercise beyond the limits expressly permitted in this Constitution. So it's talking about here of the power of the cardinals. Of course, a Pope can overturn this because no Pope can bind another Pope. So the popes often have overturned the procedures, and in fact, there have been the vast majority of history, there weren't similar procedures like this at all on the election of a pope. But this is in reference to, again, the authority of the College of Cardinals. Okay, so let's continue and let's see what he says.
The key phrases here are anything done by anyone with any authority. That means even the cardinals. As been seen from the second paragraph, when the Pope declares completely null and void anything done, this has to do even with voting. Yet in the recent conclave of May 2025, the cardinals allowed 133 cardinal electors to vote at the same time, a thing which is expressly forbidden by John Paul II's law in paragraph 33, which says, Part 2, the election of the Roman Pontiff, Chapter 1, electors of the Roman Pontiff. The right to elect the Roman Pontiff belongs exclusively to the cardinals of the Holy Roman Church, with the exception of those who have reached their 80th birthday before the day of the Roman Pontiff's death, or the day when the Apostolic See becomes vacant. The maximum number of cardinal electors must not exceed 120. The right of active election by any other ecclesiastic dignitary or the intervention of any lay power of whatever grade or order is absolutely excluded. The key language here is strictly binding. The maximum number of cardinal electors must not exceed 120.
Okay, so let's again just pull it up. He's mentioning paragraph 33 here. And what it says is, the right of the Pope to elect the Pope belongs exclusively to the cardinals of the Church, with the exception of those who have reached their 80th birthday. Maximum number of cardinal electors must not exceed 120. Okay, so he's going to hang his hat on that because, of course, there were more than 120 cardinal electors who elected Robert Prevost. as Pope Leo XIV. So this is again where he will hang his hat and he will say, this right here invalidates the election. Okay, so let's continue with the video. He's going to add some more information here.
So that means in the papal law, whenever it says cardinal electors, the number cannot exceed 120. Yet the cardinals violated this directly, claiming to use their authority to interpret ambiguous sections of the papal law. But there's absolutely nothing ambiguous about this rule. And as I said in my Italian interview with Emma News on YouTube, instead of violating the law, they could have chosen lots and have had 13 cardinal electors voluntarily abstain from voting during each round of the balloting. And thus they would have allowed only 120 cardinals to vote at any given time. That the cardinals did not do this causes the election to be doubtful on account of the promulgatory clause by Pope John Paul II, which causes any action contrary to the rules of the law to be null and void.
Okay, so you see why we were talking about that. The first two paragraphs, 1 and 2 at the beginning there, he's arguing that if anything is done contrary to this, it's null and void. And he says, look, more than 120 people elected, provost as pope, and, you can only have 120 according to this, ergo, the pope's not the pope. There actually is no pope right now.
That means 13 votes in each balloting were null and void and could not be counted. But according to the papal law in paragraph 68, where it reads, if the number of ballots does not correspond to the number of electors, the ballots must all be burned and a second vote taken at once. Now, the plain context of this rule has to do with the maximum number of 120 cardinal electors. So when 133 voted, it was juridically impossible that the number of votes counted not exceed the number of 120 cardinal electors permitted to vote. It was also juridically impossible to determine which of the 13 votes should not have been counted. This means every balloting session had to burn the votes, not count them, and no vote during that session was juridically valid. But this was done in each of the 4 ballots, at the end of which it was declared that Cardinal Prevost was elected. All this means that the votes were juridically null and void, and that means Cardinal Prevost was not elected validly, even if he's not a manifest heretic whose election would have been invalidated by the bull of Paul IV, cum ex apostolatus officio, as I have explained in English and Italian here at From Rome Info News. Once again, as in the case of the renunciation of Pope Benedict XVI, it is to Pope John Paul II and his wisdom as a legislator that we can say with 100% certainty that the conclaves of 2013 and 2025 are null and void, and that in each no one was elected the Roman pontiff.
Okay, so again, he's saying again, not only is Pope Leo not the Pope, but he's still arguing that Francis wasn't the Pope. I don't know how that works with the fact that he had his own little conclave and they elected Pope Francis as the Pope. I don't, maybe he's saying like the original conclave that elected Francis the Pope wasn't legit, but his little conclave was. I don't know. But yeah, this is, very, very clear cut. He's saying Leo's not the Pope. And here's the argument why. Look, I mean, we are going to, let's tackle the arguments here because, I mean, regardless of who it comes from and no matter how ridiculous some of the claims might be, for the sake of people who might legitimately be confused on the matter, maybe it's important to offer a response. I do kind of think this is the conclusion of a combination between scrupulosity and people who aren't experts in canon law attempting to do canon law. So yeah, when you have a person who's overly scrupulous, they're constantly looking for faults in something. And when you have somebody who's not an expert in an area trying to function as an expert in a particular area, it leads to stuff like this, right? Okay, so but let's still go ahead and address it. I want to show you a couple things because the College of Cardinals kind of anticipated that somebody might say this or it might be an issue, and so they've they went ahead and addressed this back in April. So you should be able to see this from the Vatican website, Declaration of the Congregation of Cardinals on April 30th of 2025. So just about a month ago. The Congregation of Cardinals wishes to make public the following two matters of a procedural nature on which it has reflected and debated in recent days. Regarding the cardinal electors, the congregation has revealed that His Holiness Francis, he had already passed away at this point, by creating a number of cardinals higher than the 120, stipulated by number 33 of the Apostolic Constitution, Universi Dominici Gregis, of St. John Paul II on 22nd of February 1996, the document he was referring to. In the exercise of his supreme power, they're saying Pope Francis has dispensed with this legislative provision. So they're not asserting that they have the authority to dispense with it. That would be them acting ultra vires, beyond their authority. They're not saying they have that authority. They're saying that Pope Francis dispensed with that when he made more than 120 eligible cardinals, whereby the cardinals exceeding the set limit have acquired, in accordance with number 36 of the same Apostolic Constitution, the right to elect the Roman pontiff from the moment of their creation and publication. Now, what does paragraph 36 say, which the individual we just saw there on the video did not account for, but the cardinals are accounting for? Well, it says this: a cardinal of the Holy Roman Church who has been created and published before the College of Cardinals thereby has the right to elect the Pope in accordance with the norm of number 33 of the present Constitution, even if he has not yet received the red hat or the ring or sworn the oath. On the other hand, cardinals who have been canonically deposed or who, with the consent of the Pope, have renounced the cardinalate do not have this right. Moreover, during the period of vacancy, the College of Cardinals cannot readmit or rehabilitate them, which is why Becciu wasn't allowed to vote. But right here, they're saying, well, by just being made a cardinal under the age of 80, you already have the right, even according to this constitution, to elect another pope. So you have two things from the Constitution that are at tension with each other. Number one, you have one part of the Constitution that's saying no more than 120 can vote for the Pope. But you have another part of the same Constitution saying anybody who has been made a cardinal who's under 80 can vote. So, which one do you go with? Do you go with the 120 rule, or do you go with the rule that says everybody who is under 80 and is made a cardinal can vote? You see the problem? Either way, you end up in a difficulty here. So all the cardinals did is they didn't overrule anything. They just said, well, by Pope Francis electing or choosing more than 120 cardinals who are of voting age, that's him automatically dispensing with this. Now, of course, the Pope has the ability to dispense with what you have here from John Paul II. Nobody else can. No cardinal can, no bishop can. They can't change anything. The Pope can, however. The Pope can alter these things. And they're saying that the Pope did just that by virtue of the fact that he chose more than 120 cardinal electors. And if this was contrary to what he wanted, he would have made it clear, hey, no, you can't have more than 120. So that's what this guy is missing here, that the cardinals already anticipated and thought of and released this document. Now, you'll notice he didn't address that argument, but even if he did, look, honestly, who's more competent here? Okay, let's just be frank. This guy or the College of Cardinals? Let's just be honest here. Now, whatever deficiencies you can find in the College of Cardinals, and I think you can find a lot. I've actually mentioned some. Whatever deficiencies you think you can find, I'm pretty confident they know canon law pretty well. They might not know some other things well, but they know canon law pretty well. Maybe not every single one of them, but they got some people there who do, and of course they have canon lawyers that they're consulting as a whole college, especially when they're about to elect a pope. So these things were already checked out by canon lawyers, and many of them already are canon lawyers. So they've already accounted for this. They've already anticipated it. And look, this isn't kind of an appeal to authority kind of argument, or I'm trying to avoid that, but let's be honest. I think that would be a legitimate appeal, if nothing else. I mean, I do think that the cardinals are much more competent to determine the meaning of this constitution than this guy from YouTube is, right? But you don't even have to appeal to authority, because they gave you some really good reasons to see how this makes sense of that constitution in that declaration on April 30th of 2025. So I think that just seals the deal there, right? And Vatican News reported on this at the time. Upcoming conclave will be the first with more than 120 cardinal electors, and then they go through the same difficulty that this guy's mentioning. And then they point out this decision on part of the cardinal electors in their interpretation of the document. Despite a history of exceeding the limit, this 2025 conclave will be the first time one will take place with more than 120 cardinal electors. The College of Cardinals released a declaration on April 30th recognizing the right of all 133 electors to participate in the upcoming conclave, and determining that the legislative provision of John Paul II's declaration had been tacitly dispensed from the Pope, Pope Francis, when the set limit was surpassed. All right, so that's effectively what is going on with the Apostolic Constitution from John Paul II, and the argument that some people are presenting and saying that the Pope isn't the Pope. You can also couple that with the point that I've brought up numerous times from Cardinal Journet, who says, quote, "Therefore, from the moment in which the Pope is accepted by the Church," and the Church has accepted Pope Leo XIV, "and united to her as the head to the body, it's no longer permitted to raise doubts about a possible vice of election or a possible lack of any condition whatsoever necessary for legitimacy. It's no longer even allowed to question it." Why? Because the whole church as a whole can't be deceived, and the church has already accepted him. "For the aforementioned adhesion of the church heals in the root all fault in the election, and proves infallibly the existence of all the required conditions." So the fact that the church has accepted this heals in the root any faults, and also proves that there weren't any faults there to begin with. But even if there were, it heals in the roots any defects. So even if you want to say there was a defect here, the fact that everybody's already accepted them, it is what it is. They had their chance. They could have immediately pushed back, as a bunch of cardinals could have pushed back, a bunch of bishops could have pushed back, a bunch of laity could have pushed back. That didn't happen. He was peacefully and universally already accepted at this point. So I think it's a little too late for them to come back and say, "Oh no, we changed our mind." Now, couple this with what we're seeing from the College of Cardinals, I think this is an open and shut case. Although I'm very confident for some people it won't be an open and shut case, and they'll still use this for months and maybe even years to come. But at the very least, I'm putting this out there for y'all for the benefit of everybody who's looking at this honestly and maybe wanted a response to this argument. So let me also remind y'all of something that I just created. Somebody was asking me to create some additional merch, which I just did for y'all. If you go to rtmerchstore.com, you can get your new merch. So you got Michael Lofton Show, Reason and Theology merch, but you also got, as everybody was asking me to create, Don't Block Me Bro merch. And also he did a heresy merch. Some people were asking me to to create that, as well as again, let me go back to the Don't Block Me Bro merch. For those of y'all who are fans of the channel, you get the inside joke. I went ahead and created that for y'all. So rtmerchstore.com. Go and check it out. Also, let me remind y'all, go to rtcourses.com. rtcourses.com to check out any of my courses, either on the magisterium or the 7 ecumenical councils. All of that is available here. There's also some free resources and free PDF documents that you may be interested in. And so go and check that out. And of course, you can also join my mailing list and be an insider there. So that's the place to do it, rtcourses.com. Hey, everybody, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you appreciated this video, if you benefited from the content, I would definitely appreciate your support. Go ahead and show that to me in the likes and the subscribers, and of course in the comment section. And by the way, again, what did y'all think about the live comments being displayed here? What did y'all think of that feature? Did y'all like it? Was it distracting? Do y'all want me to keep it? Was it useless? Let me hear from you. All right, that's going to do it for today. We'll see you later. God bless.